Welcome to the demo on how to convert microservices on Istio into API products. I'm Prabhudu Gunathilaka. I'm a technical lead at WSO2. Let's take the example of online shopping store. This has several microservices such as products, inventory, and review. These are developed in different languages and the microservices are communicating with each other. Once you deploy these microservices in Istio, then the question comes how to expose these microservices as an API product. This is where we introduce API operator for Kubernetes. By giving a Swagger definition to Kubernetes, you can simply deploy a micro gateway for your microservices. This makes API a first-class citizen in Kubernetes ecosystem. This is easier to deploy. This imposes security throttling, mediation, and monitoring for your microservices. There are built-in deployment patterns such as private jet, shared, and sidecar. This brings fully automated experience for cloud-native API management. The Swagger definition is used as the single source of truth. If we look at the workflow of the API operator, a user will use the API-CTL command line tool to deploy an API in Kubernetes. The Swagger definition of the API is given as the input for Kubernetes. When the API is added, the API operator does two things. It creates the micro gateway Docker image with the given Swagger definition. Then it pushes to the Docker registry, and then it deploys the deployment service and HPA horizontal pod auto-scaling policy for API micro gateway. Let's go to the demo. You can find the demo artifacts in this location. First, you need to install a Kubernetes cluster, and then on top of that you install Istio and the API operator. I have installed Istio in my local cluster. I'm going to deploy microservices in Istio. First, I will be creating a namespace called micro and enable Istio injection. And then I'll be deploying products, inventory, and review microservices. This target endpoint is the custom resource definition in API operator. By giving a Docker image, you can simply deploy any microservice in Kubernetes. You don't need to write any deployment or service for Kubernetes. I'll be deploying these microservices. Then if we list down the pods in micro namespace, you can see that our pods are running. So we have now deployed these microservices in micro namespace, and our Istio Ingress gateway is always running in Istio system. Next, I will be deploying an API micro gateway for my microservices. In order to do that, I have a Swagger definition. In my Swagger definition, I have several resources. Products resource will call to the products microservice. Review resource will call to the review microservice. Inventory resource will call to the inventory microservice. So let's deploy this Swagger definition in Kubernetes. Let's initialize the project first. Then we can deploy the API in Kubernetes. If we list down the pods in micro namespace, you can see that online store API is getting created. You can see the API micro gateway is now running. Next, we have to expose the API micro gateway to the outside traffic. Here, I have the gateway and virtual service definition for Istio. I have a host called internal.wso.com. So this host is mapped to the micro gateway service which we created. Let's deploy these artifacts. At this moment, we have deployed our microservices and our micro gateway. Now we can access the API. In order to access the API, we need to get an access token. In order to do that, I will be importing my API to the API publisher. First, we can add an environment in API CTL, and then we can import the API. I will be giving my credentials. Now I have successfully imported my API. When you log in into the API publisher, you can see the imported API. This is an overview of the API. Now you can update the business plans. Let's select and save it, and then you can update the business information and also the technical information. Then we can update the environment. This is how you basically productize your API. Now let's publish this API. Once you publish this API, this will be available in the developer portal. This is where the API consumers or the app developers discover this API. In order to subscribe to this API, we can create an application. Let's create an application called app1. We keep the default values, and then let's go to the API and subscribe to that particular application. Now we can generate an access key. Let's generate keys. Now we will be getting an access token. Let's try out the API. You can paste the access token copied. Let's try this products resource. You can see the successful result here. Let's try the other resources. This will give the product level information and also the review resource. Let's try with the inventory as well. This is a dashboard in Istio. You can see the traffic flow in here. The request is coming to the Istio Ingress Gateway and then to the API Micro Gateway. From here, we apply security, throttling, and mediation. Once we done that, the request will go to the respective microservice. So you can see these microservices in here. Once you productize your microservices into API products, you can create an API marketplace for your microservices. Also, you can plug API analytics to get business information for your microservices. For more information, you can refer this article. Thank you very much.